Hey everybody, overlooked the lounge pants and the old t-shirt. I got home today. I've been running pretty hard today and I wanted to get into something a little more comfortable, but I wanted to do this song that I wrote a couple years ago. Uh, I'm not a good singer, so try to overlook the singing if you can. But anyway, I wrote this song. I was out of town working in Florida and called my mom one night just to check in on her. My mom's getting on up there in the years, and I just want to check in on her. And she asked me where I was at because she knows I travel, that I was traveling a lot. And a lot of times I would call her from different places across the country. But she asked me where I was at, and I told her, and she said, "Wow, that's where my baby sister is buried." And I was like, "What?" And I remember as a child, hearing stories about her having a baby sister and that passed away as an infant. I didn't remember anything more than that. That's all I knew about it. I had no idea that she was buried that way down in Florida. But anyway, uh, it turns out, as my mother told me, that during a time when her dad was kind of hauling the family around, chasing his work because he was a tile setter. They actually lived in Florida for 2 or 3 years, and traveled through different towns and cities in Florida. Like I said, he was chasing the work, and during this time, my grandmother had become pregnant, and it was her last child, the one after my mom. My mom was the baby. Excuse me. And anyway, when the child was born, it only lived a few hours. And when that happened, my mom said that my grandmother told my grandfather, said, "I'm done, take me back home. I want to go home." And she said, "If you don't, then I'm calling mom and dad and having them send me and the kids some bus tickets, and because I'm going home. I'm done with this." So anyway, he agreed, and before they left, they buried the little girl, and she was a little girl, and named her Juanita Rose. And I'm sure they didn't have a lot of money, so I'm sure the church where she's buried, the cemetery, donated the grave plot, and they didn't put a tombstone on the grave. But my grandfather went instead and laid tile on the grave, and what he did was he built like a 3.5 or a three by two and a half, 3.5 by 2.5, something like that box. I don't know if it's concrete or what it is, with a curved top, just a slightly curved top, and it's baby blue tile around the outside and pink tile laid across the top, and it's absolutely beautiful. Uh, as far as I know, that's the only bit of my grandfather's tile work I ever saw, because I really never knew my maternal grandfather that well. Him and my grandmother were divorced before I was ever born, and I'd only remember meeting him 2 or 3 times. But anyway, when my mom told me this, I decided I had to go find it. So I was off on a Sunday, and asked around some local people and stuff, and got 2 or 3 leads, and looked online. My mom had actually been there about 30 years before with my uncle, who was much older than her and knew where it was at. So he took my mom to the gravesite, because my mom was only 4 or 5 when Juanita was born. I think she was 5 at the time. And so she didn't have a lot of, memories about where it was at. But my uncle took her down there and showed her the grave. And the caretaker of the cemetery had actually come out and spoke to him, and told him that no one there, no one knew whose grave that was. They just knew it was a baby's grave it was unmarked. It didn't have a name or anything on it. So anyway, they he was quite tickled to learn something when he met my mom, and my Uncle Jim, you know, and they told him, said, we're her brother and sister. This is Juanita Rose. But anyway, my mom described the place to me because she remembered from 30 years prior the one time that she had been there. And so, to the best of her recollection, she told me what it looked like. So I got some information up, and I started doing some research with my little Chromebook in the hotel room the night before until I found something that looked like it might have been a place that looked like it might have been matched. And I got in the truck the next day and went. I actually did work part of that day is what happened. I worked part of the day, and I got off and about 10:30 that morning, and so I went to find the grave. And I went to this cemetery, and it's a two-part cemetery. One part was much older, that was outside the fence, and it wasn't well kept up. There was a couple of modern graves there, and I'm sure it was old family members that were buried there, but most of the graves were really, really old. And there were some older graves in the more modern part that was fenced in, that had the gate and stuff. But a lot of modern graves. You could tell it was well kept, manicured. It's behind the church and stuff. So I assumed that they donated the grave plot, which I'm sure they did. It would have been in the old section. So I spent a good hour wandering around this whole section of the cemetery, and had to look really close because there's grass growing up and stuff, and to try to find the grave that my mom described, and I didn't find it. So I thought, well, I'll go over here to the modern part and look. And I had kind of been looking over the fence that way, and I didn't see anything while I was in the older section. So, but anyway, I decided just to make a quick pass through the newer part, and I went all the way to the back of the cemetery, and it's a couple 100 feet wide, this part of the cemetery, and probably 500-600 feet long. And I went to the back of it, and didn't see anything, and turned around, had given up. I just thought in the back of my mind, I'll just tell Mom I couldn't find it, because I still had some other stuff I had to do that day. I had to take care of some laundry and stuff. So I started back through the cemetery, and as I passed, there was a tombstone, a very tall tombstone, or a very large tombstone, about 50 foot to my right. And I was still kind of glancing side to side, and as I passed this tombstone, back in this back corner, a little square tile caught my eye. I couldn't tell a lot about it from where I was at, but I made my way over to it, and there was the grave. And it was just as my mom described it. It had blue tile around the outside and pink tile on the top. And it had degraded. A lot of the tile was chipping off, and a lot of pieces were laying around it. But it was absolutely beautiful. You could tell my grandfather had put a lot of love, and I'm sure a lot of heartbreak into building this marker for Juanita. But there was no name or anything. And so anyway, excuse my dog barking. That experience, it may sound kind of corny to some people, but I was really moved by that whole experience. Really touched me deeply on a personal level. To stand there with my aunt, who had passed as an infant, 16 years before I was born, at her graveside, and in a stranger cemetery where no one even knew who she was. I found it really, really moving. But anyway, I went back to the hotel that night, and I wrote down these words. And there's one line I'm trying to remember. I'm having a hard time. I hope I can remember it, the song. But I'm going to try to sing it. And the title of it is Will You Remember? of